The grand assembly shimmered like a floating cathedral above the orange dwarf star, its curved walls alive with slow ripples of color. Green when delegates whispered, red when they shouted. Today it pulsed a soft amber, a diplomatic warning that emotions were mildly heated. Captain Eli Ward adjusted the cuffs of his Terran dress uniform and smiled politely, because that was what humans did when the room was about to explode. Across the long obsidian table, the insectoid ambassador Tavel clicked her mandibles in rhythm, her iridescent carapace refracting gold. Humans, she said in the universal tongue, continue to dramatize their reproductive tragedies. A few lost female colonists, and you summon the council as if the stars themselves were bleeding. Laughter chittered through the chamber. Eli's expression didn't move. His eyes, sea-gray and unblinking, observed the laughter like a teacher listening to children boast about fire. He reached forward, pressing a fingertip to the console, and a holographic field bloomed. An image of the colony on Alicia Prime, once a forested paradise, now ash and static. The laughter faded. 73 civilians, Eli said softly. Mostly women. Medical personnel. Volunteers. He poured a measure of steaming liquid into a small porcelain cup, the gesture strangely intimate in a room of titanium and neon. Coffee, anyone? Tavel recoiled slightly. You bring a stimulant to a hearing of war crimes? Eli's tone was gentle. Caffeine's never started a war, Ambassador. Can't say the same for arrogance. Several delegates hissed in their native registers. A crystalline being named Caliph. 9 emitted a faint chime, the equivalent of laughter. The chair of the council, a silver-skinned telepath with eyes like twin moons, tilted his head, his voice brushing through every mind. Your outrage is noted, human. Perhaps your females should remain hidden if they are so delicate. The temperatures seemed to drop. Even the walls paused their shimmering. Eli exhaled slowly through his nose. Delicate? He repeated. That word has buried more empires than your historians have bothered to count. A murmur swelled, but Eli's smile remained cordial, his tone light again. He tapped another button, and data spiraled upward. Names, timestamps, transmissions. The attacks weren't random. Someone is testing how far politeness stretches. So, let's make this civil. Stop attacking our women, or we stop pretending to be polite. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It thrummed with disbelief. Caliph, 9 leaned forward, facets glimmering. Define pretending. Eli looked thoughtful. Pretending is what humans do before we stand up. An aquatic ambassador made a sound like rippling water. Empty threats, it gurgled. Your species signed the accord precisely because it cannot fight prolonged wars. Eli's grin widened. You think we're bad at war because we don't enjoy it. That's adorable. The chair rose, silver cloak whispering against the air. Enough. This council finds no justification for retaliation. The Terran demand is denied. Dismissed. Eli stood as well, smoothing his coat with military precision. Of course, he said. You're the referees after all. He lifted the coffee cup again, inhaled deeply. We'll handle the misunderstanding on our own time. As he turned to leave, Caliph 9's crystalline voice chimed behind him. You fascinate us, Captain Ward. Why such calm when your blood must boil? He paused at the threshold, half lit by the star's gold reflection. Because where I'm from, he said. Losing your temper means you already lost. Outside the chamber, the corridor's windows stretched into infinity. Beyond them drifted the blue marble of Vega's outer colonies, their lights flickering faintly like candles in wind. Eli stopped beside a service droid and handed it the now empty cup. Don't wash that, he said. Keep it as evidence that Earth tried being civilized. A faint chime buzzed at his wrist. He glanced down. The encrypted message flashed once before self-erasing. Operation Mother's Mercy, authorized. For a moment, his reflection in the glass stared back. A calm, well-mannered diplomat. But his eyes carried the quiet weight of a soldier who had seen cities die and still chosen restraint. He adjusted his tie, straightened his shoulders, and whispered, They still think we're bluffing. Back inside the hall, the delegates resumed their debates. One mocked the human's theatrics, another imitated his voice, and the telepath smiled thinly, confident in the council's authority. But Caliph 9 remained still, analyzing the word, pretending through millions of linguistic permutations. In every Terran dialect, it found the same undertone: voluntary restraint. Eli's shuttle detached from the station, the thrusters whispering like sighs in the void. The pilot, a young lieutenant barely 25, tried to hide her unease. "Sir," she said quietly, "do they even realize what they've done?" Eli looked out at the horizon where the dwarf star glowed like molten iron. "No," he said. "But they will." The shuttle entered hyperslip, streaking the stars into ribbons. Within minutes, the council station dwindled into a point of light. In its place, the darkness opened, silent, vast, waiting. Eli leaned back in his seat. The hum of the engines became a heartbeat under his thoughts. He remembered the old saying from Earth's military academies: "Speak softly, carry a big stick." Most of the galaxy only ever heard the softness. He closed his eyes briefly, the faintest smile returning. The scent of coffee lingered on his fingers, warm and human amid the cold metal around him. "They called us polite," he murmured. "They never asked what happens when we stop." Far behind him, the assembly lights flickered once, then steadied. On the observation deck, Caliph 9 watched the fading trail of the Terran shuttle. "Fascinating creatures," it whispered. "They apologize like poets and threaten like gods." In the vacuum between stars, signals pulsed, encrypted, rhythmic, synchronized. One after another, Terran fleets began to stir, awakening from long silence. Rescue ships adjusted course. Civilian convoys rerouted toward military space. From the quiet planet of Luna Prime, an old orbital AI came online for the first time in 2 centuries. Eli's eyes opened as his communicator buzzed again, the sound soft as a heartbeat. He read the words and exhaled, the line of his jaw hardening. "Confirm readiness. Await command." He replied with a single phrase: "Politeness revoked." The stars outside seemed to shimmer in response, distant and cold, as if the universe itself had just been given notice. The young pilot glanced back, unaware of the signal that had just crossed half the galaxy. "Sir," she asked, "was the meeting successful?" Eli gave her a calm, almost kind smile. "Oh yes. They heard us loud and clear." The shuttle disappeared into warp, leaving behind only the faint echo of a man's voice, carried on comm static and starlight. "Stop attacking our women, or we stop pretending to be polite." The USS Artemis drifted like a silver blade through the velvet dark, its engines a low heartbeat beneath the hum of the stars. Inside the command deck, the air smelled faintly of metal, ozone, and overbrewed coffee, the unofficial scent of human diplomacy. Captain Eli Ward stood before the panoramic viewport, hands clasped loosely behind his back, eyes fixed on the horizon where Vega's faint light bled into shadow. His reflection gazed back at him, expression calm, though the muscles in his jaw pulsed like distant thunder. Behind him, the bridge crew murmured quietly. Lieutenant Ramos, the ship's communications officer, was recounting the council meeting for the 10th time that morning, each retelling growing more absurd. "I swear, when Tavel spit that green mist at you, I thought you were gonna sneeze her into another dimension." Laughter rippled across the deck. Eli didn't turn. "Lieutenant," he said, his voice light, "if I'd sneezed, the council would have declared it an act of war. We're saving that for next week." More laughter. Relief disguised as humor. Humans laughed when they were scared. It was one of their oldest survival traits. He lifted a small mug to his lips. The coffee had long gone cold, but the habit anchored him. For days now the feeds had been silent. No reply from the alien governments, no apology, no ceasefire. Just quiet arrogance. They believed Earth would do nothing. They always did. The ship's AI, Kasha, spoke in a soft contralto. "Captain, incoming data burst from the outer colonies. It's marked urgent priority." The lights dimmed slightly as the transmission unfolded. Grainy images flickered across the hollow screen. Smoke, blood, a woman's voice screaming before the signal cut. Coordinates followed. Ramos swallowed. That's the Epsilon convoy. Civilian medics, sir. Mostly women and children. The bridge fell still. Eli lowered his mug onto the console with slow precision. The sound of ceramic meeting metal echoed faintly. Timestamp? 20 minutes ago. He nodded once. So they're still out there. Orders, Captain? Play it again. They hesitated. The second time through, the screams hit harder. Even the machine seemed to pause between frames, as if reluctant to continue. When it ended, Eli said quietly, "Patch me through to the Terran Coalition broadcast network." A few officers exchanged uneasy glances. Ramos cleared his throat. "Sir, you're going public?" Eli's tone was almost gentle. "If they insist on misunderstanding, we'll clarify." Moments later, cameras aligned, lights steadied. Across every channel of human and alien space, a familiar face appeared. The polite, unflappable Captain Ward. He stood against the backdrop of stars, posture calm, eyes steady. "To all members of the Galactic Accord," he began, voice even but sharp with restrained fury. "Earth extends one final courtesy." His gaze flicked slightly, as though he were speaking to someone directly on the other side of the lens. "Stop targeting our women, or we stop pretending to be polite." A silence followed, a vast, electric pause across 1,000 worlds. Then, still smiling faintly, he added, "You've mistaken kindness for weakness. Don't make that mistake again." He ended the transmission without flourish. The bridge remained frozen for a heartbeat, every officer absorbing what they just witnessed. Ramos broke the quiet. "You just threatened the entire galaxy, sir." Eli's grin was quick and disarming. "Only the impolite parts." The room exhaled laughter again, nervous but grateful for the release. Still, behind the humor, a shift had begun. No one on that ship doubted what "stop pretending" meant. Humanity's mask had cracked, and the universe had just seen the faint gleam of the steel beneath. Hours later, messages poured in, official responses, private warnings, intercepted chatter. Aliens mocked the human broadcast, calling it primitive theater. Some declared it a quaint attempt at intimidation. Others, older civilizations that remembered Terran wars, remained silent. Silence, Eli thought, was wisdom's last refuge. He studied the flood of transmissions in his quarters, sipping fresh coffee now. The screens bathed him in shifting colors: green for laughter, red for threats, blue for disbelief. He scrolled until one caught his eye, a small video clip of alien soldiers celebrating, drinking, boasting about teaching human females humility. Eli watched until the clip ended. Then he poured the rest of his coffee onto the floor, letting it soak into the steel. The liquid spread like a dark stain. "They still don't understand," he murmured. Cash's voice emerged softly. "You anticipated this outcome, Captain." He nodded. "Anticipating doesn't make it easier." A pause. "Shall I prepare for countermeasures?" He shook his head. "No. They're about to teach themselves." At that moment, the ship's emergency beacon flickered red, an automated distress signal from the Epsilon convoy. The location tag pulsed faintly near the nebular rift, a volatile stretch of space where scanners went blind. Ramos' voice burst through the comm. "Captain, 3 alien fleets converging on the distress zone. They're jamming all channels." Eli rose, sliding his sleeves to his elbows with clinical calm. "Inform them we're en route." "Sir, that's suicide. We're outnumbered 30-1. "Good," he said. "They'll feel special." He stepped onto the command deck as the alert klaxons throbbed. Crew members snapped to stations, faces pale but resolute. "Set course for the rift. No shields until I say otherwise." Ramos stared. "No shields?" Eli smiled faintly. "Let them believe we're defenseless. It'll make the next part educational." The Artemis turned toward the rift, its engines roaring with restrained fury. Outside, the nebula glowed in hues of blue and violet, like an endless bruise against the night. The fleet's formation shimmered faintly on the edge of detection, predators circling prey they didn't yet comprehend. Eli's comm beeped again. A new message, unmarked, decoded itself automatically. 3 words appeared. Test received confirmed. He read it twice, eyes narrowing. It wasn't from the coalition. It was from an unknown relay, hidden within the rift itself. His pulse steadied. The test had begun. He sat down slowly in the captain's chair, voice calm over the calm. Helm, maintain approach speed. Weapons cold. Broadcast a loop of our distress beacon. Make them think we're desperate. Ramos hesitated. Captain, what are we walking into? Eli's answer came soft as gravity. The point of no return. Through the viewport, streaks of light flared, the alien fleets igniting weapons, closing in like sharks around blood. The rift pulsed brighter, swallowing stars in its haze. Eli leaned forward, elbows on knees, eyes reflecting the storm. His crew waited for the order to fire. Instead, he whispered, "Let's see if the galaxy can still tell the difference between mercy and warning." The ship glided into the mist, vanishing like a candle into deep water. Somewhere in the dark, unseen beacons awoke one by one, forming a vast, invisible net. The aliens didn't notice until it was too late, the human trap already closing. Eli's last words before the signal cut were calm, almost kind. Test received. And the stars answered with silence. The nebula opened before them like a wounded god, colors writhing, electric veins pulsing violet and gold. The USS Artemis drifted silent in the chaos, her hull reflecting the glow of 1,000 storms. The alien fleets had already arrived. Sleek, dark vessels arrayed in a crescent formation, their weapons humming with confidence. They believed they'd trapped a single Terran ship. They were wrong. Captain Eli Ward stood at the center of the bridge, hands clasped behind his back. Around him, his crew moved with mechanical grace, their fear smoothed into focus. He could feel their tension vibrating like a string, tight, ready to snap. But he said nothing. A leader's calm was the crew's shield. "Enemy transmission incoming," Ramos reported. "They're broadcasting live. Whole quadrants watching." Eli's jaw flexed once. "Put it through." A towering hologram flickered into view. Admiral Thress of the Vrati Dominion, scales glinting black and crimson, his voice deep and theatrical. "Human vessel, you have violated restricted space. You will surrender immediately. We will treat your survivors with conditional mercy." Eli tilted his head. "Appreciate the offer, Admiral, but we brought our own mercy." The alien's slitted eyes narrowed. "You think this is a negotiation?" "No," Eli said softly. "This is a countdown." Thress sneered. "You bluff. You always bluff." "Maybe." Eli glanced at his wrist display. "But that's the fun part." The hologram vanished. Outside, the alien ships shifted formation, tightening the ring, energy beams flaring to life. Inside, every human heartbeat seemed synchronized with the rising hum of the engines. "Shields?" Ramos asked. Eli shook his head. "None. Let them think they're drawing blood." The first barrage struck, a wall of plasma fire that should have turned the Artemis into molten slag. But as the light faded, the ship remained. The shots had been absorbed by a shimmering distortion, barely visible, almost like light bending around the vessel's skin. The crew stared. Ramos whispered, "Sir, that wasn't standard shielding." Eli's smile was quiet, not proud, just inevitable. "No. That was preparation." As if on cue, space itself began to ripple. From behind the nebular veil, dozens of Terran ships emerged, rescue barges, cargo haulers, mining vessels, all refitted into war machines. Their hulls were painted with names: Aurora, Alicia, Haven's Reach, Sister Mercy. Every name carried a ghost. "Fleet online," said Kasha, the AI. "Targets locked." Eli gave a small nod. "Then let's educate them." The Terran fleet opened fire, not with rage but precision. Missiles streaked through the nebula like shooting stars, weaving through enemy formations with impossible accuracy. The Vrati fleet collapsed inward, confused by the coordination. Their ships tried to retreat, but found their warp drives offline. "Admiral Thress ships are not responding," reported Ramos. "Every one of them is losing power." "They're not losing it," Eli said. "We're taking it." Indeed, the Artemis energy readings spiked, each fallen enemy ship fueling the Terran grid through stolen wormhole algorithms. A quiet, horrifying efficiency. Thress reappeared on comm, shouting, "You dare use our own technology against us?" Eli raised his mug, steam curling from the coffee within. "You shouldn't have uploaded your manuals to the Galactic Archive." He took a sip. "We read fast." Across the bridge, a young ensign stifled a laugh. It came out brittle, too thin to mask the fear underneath. Eli caught her eye and offered a nod. Not comfort, but acknowledgement. She was seeing what the galaxy had never believed. Humans without restraint. The alien fleet tried to regroup, forming a defensive ring. Eli watched calmly. "Music," he said. Kasha hesitated. "Confirm. Battle hymn protocol?" "Yes." A soft choral hum filled the ship. Old Earth recordings, women's voices in harmony, singing a lullaby from a century long gone. It played through open comms, echoing across the entire battlefield. The alien crews heard it too. Delicate human voices drifting through the void while their ships burned. Thress' final transmission crackled through the static. "You're monsters." Eli's answer came quiet, measured. "We warned you we'd stop being polite." Then the sky ignited. The Artemis rail cannons fired in perfect synchrony with the fleet. Beams of white energy carved through enemy lines. The nebula's gases caught the blast and bloomed like a dying star, violet fire swallowing everything. The light was so bright it reached sensors on worlds 2 systems away. Minutes later, silence returned. Only debris remained, glittering fragments drifting through the glow. No Terran ship had fallen. Ramos broke the quiet. "That was total." Eli exhaled. "No. That was proportionate." He rose from his chair and stepped closer to the viewport. The battlefield stretched infinite before him, an ocean of ash and fractured hulls. Somewhere beyond that wreckage, the live broadcast continued, transmitting the entire scene to the galaxy. Billions were watching. Eli spoke softly, but the open comm carried his words across every channel. "To anyone listening, this is your case study in consequences. The lesson is simple. Don't test how long our patience lasts." He cut the signal. The bridge fell into uneasy quiet. "Sir," said the ensign again, voice trembling. "We killed thousands." Eli didn't look back. "They were soldiers. They gambled. We collected." She hesitated. "And if they come again?" "Then we remind them," he said. For a long moment he stood motionless, eyes lost in the drifting wreckage. The choral hymn still played faintly, as if the universe itself refused to stop listening. Finally, he turned toward his command chair. "Begin rescue operations. If any survivors surrender, treat them." Ramos blinked. "Treat them?" "They're prisoners now," Eli said simply. "Humans don't murder the defeated. We let them remember." The crew obeyed. Drones fanned out, gathering what little life remained among the ruins. One of the drones transmitted a video feed, an alien soldier barely clinging to breath, whispering in disbelief. "You call this justice?" Eli answered without hesitation. "No. This is education." He ended the channel. The silence that followed was heavy, but not empty. It was filled with the hum of engines, the echo of hymns, and the quiet horror of those who realized what their species truly was when patience ended. Kasha broke the stillness. "Incoming distress calls from multiple systems. It appears other fleets are surrendering preemptively." Eli nodded once. "Word travels fast." He poured another cup of coffee, steady hands betraying no tremor. "Patch them through later. For now, we have funerals to host." Ramos frowned. "For them, sir." "For everyone," Eli said. "Even the living." He took a slow sip, the bitter taste grounding him as alarms dimmed, and the stars outside shifted back to calm. Somewhere far off, a signal flickered, a coded ping from the outer colonies. Eli read it in silence, the words simple but chilling. "Phase 2 authorized." His hand tightened on the cup. He stared into the dark horizon where the nebula's glow had already begun to fade, swallowed by black. Phase 2, he whispered. So soon. The AI waited. Orders, Captain? He exhaled once through his nose, steady but tired. Hold position. Let them wonder what we're planning next. Outside, the wreckage of an empire drifted slowly toward the light. In the reflection on the glass, Eli's smile had returned. But this time, there was no warmth in it at all. The galaxy was quieter than it had ever been. Where the nebula once raged in violet flame, there now floated only the bones of ships, steel carcasses turning slowly in the dark, their reflections flickering like dying stars. The wreckage of the Vrati Dominion fleet stretched across 1,000,000 miles of silence, a metallic graveyard haunted by the echoes of a battle too swift for history to process. Captain Eli Ward stood at the viewport of the USS Artemis, watching the debris drift past like ghosts. His reflection stared back, calm, composed, almost gentle. The bridge lights glowed low amber, bathing the crew in the muted calm that always came after slaughter. The air felt too still, as if even the ship was holding its breath. "Report," he said softly. Ramos' voice came steady, though his eyes were still glassy with disbelief. "All hostile signals have gone dark. Recovery drones are retrieving survivors, or what's left of them. Coalition Command confirms the broadcast reached every corner of the Accord." Eli nodded, his gaze unmoving. "Reactions?" "Mixed." Ramos hesitated. "Some are terrified. Some are calling for revenge. A few are surrendering without conditions." "And the Council?" "They've gone silent, sir. Entire communication array's been dark since the battle ended." Eli smiled faintly. "Silence is good. It means they're thinking for once." He turned, walking across the bridge with slow, deliberate steps. The air hummed faintly around him. The younger officers, those who had never seen real combat, watched him like one might watch a sleeping lion. Every motion was precise, contained, yet under it all pulsed something vast and unreadable. He paused near the central console. "Kasha," he said, "bring up the live holomap." The AI obeyed. A shimmering galaxy appeared in midair, thousands of points of light flickering across the dark. Some glowed red, still hostile. Others blinked green, surrendered or neutral. But most hovered gray, uncertain, waiting to see which way the wind of power would turn. Eli studied it silently. "We changed the map," he murmured. "Not by conquest, but by memory." Ramos frowned. "Memory?" He looked up, eyes distant. "They'll remember the song. The hymn. The light. They'll remember that we didn't shout, didn't roar, didn't gloat. We just stopped smiling." The words hung heavy in the air. A soft chime broke the silence. Kasha's voice was measured, polite. "Captain, incoming transmission from the Galactic Council. Encrypted priority. Audiovisual request." Eli's lips twitched. "Took them long enough. Patch it through." The air shimmered, and suddenly the bridge filled with the spectral images of the council chamber, shattered, dim, half its seats empty. The surviving delegates stood or hovered in uneasy clusters. The silver-skinned telepath chair was gone. In his place, the crystalline being Caliph 9 presided, its facets cracked but luminous. "Captain Ward," it began, voice musical and restrained. "The Council wishes to discuss reparations." Eli chuckled under his breath. "Reparations? For whom?" "For the Dominion," Caliph said. "Their losses were extensive." "You're welcome," Eli said simply. A low hiss rippled through the delegates. A scaled ambassador raised his voice. "You think this is victory? You've destabilized entire sectors. Trade routes have collapsed, colonies are rioting. Do you understand what you've done?" Eli's smile was soft but dangerous. "Yes. I made you listen." The crystalline light of Caliph flickered. "You could have annihilated them all." "I could have," Eli agreed. "But then you'd have called it genocide. This way, you call it restraint." The assembly erupted in noise, shouting, static, clattering speech. Calitha's tone sharpened. You are terrifying, Captain. Eli inclined his head slightly. That's the first honest compliment I've heard from this chamber. Another ambassador, avian in shape, leaned forward. Humanity has always been reckless, emotional. But this was methodical. Eli's eyes met the alien's. You mistake patience for emotion. We tried civility. We wrote letters. We sent envoys. You ignored every warning. So we spoke in a language you'd understand. Caliph tilted its crystalline head. And what language is that? Eli's voice lowered. Consequence. The chamber fell silent again. Somewhere beyond the holographic projection, a faint hum filled the air. The council's recording systems, capturing every word for the archives. History was being written, line by line, in the tone of a man who never raised his voice. One delegate, a young aquatic species with trembling gills, whispered, "If this is your restraint, what would your wrath look like?" Eli considered it. "You don't want to find out." He straightened. "Here's what's going to happen. You will ratify a new accord, one that protects all civilian populations, especially women and children, regardless of species. You will enforce it. And you will remember that peace exists only because we prefer it that way." Calitha's light pulsed slowly. "And if we refuse?" Eli smiled faintly, the warmth draining from it. "Then Earth stops pretending diplomacy is still working." No one spoke. The silence of 1,000 species filled the void between them. Even the hum of machinery seemed afraid to intrude. Finally, Calith said quietly, "We accept." Eli nodded once. "Wise." The transmission faded. The holograms dissolved into mist, leaving only the bridge's dim lights and the soft thrum of the ship's engines. Ramos exhaled shakily. "Sir, was that it? Did we just win?" Eli turned back to the viewport. The field of wreckage still glimmered, a frozen sea of silver and shadow. "We ended the noise," he said. "That's not victory. It's a warning." He moved toward his command chair but paused as Cash's tone changed. Softer now, almost human. "Captain, incoming private channel. Origin, Luna Command. Encryption key, your authorization only." Eli's eyes flickered with a trace of surprise. "Patch it through to my quarters." He left the bridge, his footsteps echoing down the quiet corridor. Inside his quarters the lights were dim, the only illumination coming from Earth's image rotating lazily on the wall, a blue marble suspended in eternal dusk. The comm activated. A familiar voice filled the room. "Eli." He froze. "Admiral Coran. You're supposed to be retired." "Retirement's a word for people who stop being useful." The old man's voice was calm, weary. "The council's folding. You've shaken them to the core. But now they're afraid, and fear breeds coalitions. Expect them to unite against us, quietly, under new names." "I know," Eli said. "Then you also know what Phase 2 means." Eli's eyes darkened. "Containment protocol." "Exactly. But this time, no public broadcasts. No hymns. We make sure they remember without needing another war." Eli was silent for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was low. "You're asking me to terrify the galaxy again." "No," Coran said softly. "I'm asking you to keep it safe. Fear isn't cruelty, it's memory's armor. Without it, they'll start testing us again." Eli leaned back, staring at the holographic Earth. "And when do we stop reminding them?" "When they stop forgetting." The line clicked off. The silence that followed was heavier than any battle. Eli sat there, the faint reflection of Earth glowing across his face. His coffee mug was still on the table, cold and untouched. He reached for it, hesitated, and instead pressed a button on the console. "Kasha," he said, "open a channel to the fleet." Across the stars, Terran ships came to life waiting. "To all units," Eli began, voice calm, deliberate, every syllable measured. "The galaxy has hurt us. Let them rebuild. Assist with recovery where you can. Be kind. Our strength means nothing if it forgets mercy." A pause. "But if they raise their weapons again, remind them who taught them silence. The transmission ended. He sat back, letting the hum of the ship settle around him. His reflection stared back from the glass, older than it had been a week ago. Behind that face lingered the echo of the lullaby, those women's voices drifting through space like ghosts that refused to rest. He closed his eyes. For the first time since the war began, he felt the weight of what had been done. Not guilt, not pride, just gravity. The gravity of power, of choice, of restraint barely held together by the thinnest thread of humanity. Cash's voice broke the quiet once more. "Captain, there's a message queued for you. Personal transmission from Earth." Eli blinked. "From who?" "A civilian network. The sender identifies as—" Kasha paused as if hesitating. "Your daughter." His throat tightened. "Put it through." The screen flickered. A small face appeared. Dark hair, wide eyes, missing front tooth. The girl's voice was bright with static and innocence. "Daddy? Mommy says I can stay up because the stars are loud tonight. Are you making them quiet again?" Eli swallowed hard, his voice barely audible. "Trying to, sweetheart." She smiled, waving at the camera. "Don't forget to come home when you're done teaching." The screen blinked off. For a long time, he didn't move. The hum of the engines filled the silence again, steady and endless. Outside, the stars turned slowly, patient and uncaring. When he finally spoke, his words were a whisper. "They think we're teaching them. But it's us who keep learning." He rose, straightened his uniform, and walked back to the bridge. The crew stood as he entered. No words were needed. They saw the resolve in his eyes and the faint tremor of something almost human beneath it. "Set course for Sol," he said quietly. "We've made our point." As the ship turned toward home, the galaxy watched from its wounds. Across 1,000 systems, diplomats rewrote laws, soldiers buried dead, and alien children whispered new bedtime stories about the polite monsters from the blue world who smiled before storms. And somewhere beneath that vast silence, the Artemis engines rumbled like a closing heartbeat. Soft, final warning. Eli gazed into the void one last time, the coffee cooling in his hand, the weight of 1,000 decisions pressing into his chest. "Peace," he murmured, almost to himself, "isn't the absence of war. It's the pause before we have to speak again." The stars ahead shimmered like glass about to break.